There are few things in life that make me as happy as a new Doom release. Every new Doom game has been seared into my memory in some form or another, and from what I get up until now, Dark Ages is here to implant another seed on my brain. Should you play the Dark Ages? Yeah, you should try it. But is it like Eternal? No, not at all. It is a very different game. Not in an iterative sense, but in a radically different sense. Anyway, this is where I come in. There are things that anyone who is unsure if buying this game, they need to know beforehand. And only by hearing it from someone who considers himself a fan of the Doom game series, and I think that Doom Eternal is still the greatest game ever made, you will maybe come to consider if Dark Ages is worth a purchase or not. First off, it is important to remember that this game was actually released as it is. Id Software really has the most liberties out of any Western company that I can think of. They continuously release games that are incredible and they become cult classics almost instantly. And I guess that this is going to be one of the more divisive iterations that we'll get out of this series. But it has an impressive amount of charm, and once it gets going on all gears, this game is an experience like no other. It will take a while to click, but once it does, you're in for a brutal power fantasy that can only be topped by Eternal itself. Let's break it down. Graphics and art direction first. One of the least important things in any game is graphics, and this is one of my biggest gripes with this game. This game uses It Take 8, and it looks amazing. The cutscenes are where it really shines, even with the layer boxing. But this game shows us that too much of anything dilutes the other things. The problem with It Take 8 is that it uses ray tracing by default, and it cannot be changed. It is part of the engine itself, and that leaves us poors like me with an RX 6700 XT, which is an RT capable GPU, albeit barely. So my experience throughout the entirety of this game, for me, it was not unplayable, but it was very hard for me to reach 60 FPS consistently in any part of the game at 1440p, and using the Digital Foundry optimized settings for my card specifically. I understand that it is nice to have ray tracing do most of the work for the environment artists, such as not having to bake lightning onto the world itself and making the scenes much nicer looking, but really, does this game look that much better than Eternal? Do we really need ray tracing to appreciate the intricacies of the improved texture work? Well, not really, and it is a disservice for this game to have RT enabled always, as it will make the game incredibly hard to run on older hardware. So, Steam Deck Bros, you're BTFO'd, I suppose. On the other hand, the art direction, as always, is supreme and incredibly good in this game. Even with the redesigns of the demons, I still think they all look pretty neat. The new demons are a joy to see, as this game clearly takes inspirations from the more eldritch and Lovecraftian aspects of the Id Software universe and lore. Once you get into the latter half of the game, you'll see what I mean. I've been thinking, and maybe the best representation of the different looks that this new trilogy has had adapted is best shown by the Mancubus itself. It is an enemy that is pretty straightforward in design, a huge round dude with two cannons for arms. Each game has had its own take on this enemy, and we can see some of the notable differences between each one. For example, the Doom 2016 Mancubus looks like a hybrid of biological experiments and demon evolution, which goes to show you that the look that they were going for in that game was like a more futuristic, hybrid biological infestation. In Doom Eternal, they returned to the originals and they took inspirations from that, giving us a rather simple but imposing Mancubus design. In the Dark Ages, they decided to keep him mostly the same as it was in Eternal, just adapting him to make him paler and a bit wider in game. Like, wider. The armored variant and the Cyber Mancubus equivalent in Eternal, they look very different, like with the steel and iron looking armor in the Doom the Dark Ages, and a more futuristic armor in Doom Eternal, proving that this enemy works very well as an example of the different art styles in each game. The Doomslayer himself has probably never looked more imposing and powerful. A huge block of steel, lead, and blood powering through the hordes of hell. The fur cape looks like very extra on the Slayer, but at the end of the day, I think they did a great job of adapting our favorite dimension hopping maniac to a medieval and gothic setting. The artists really worked their magic in the art direction of this game, and where the game takes you by the end, oh man, they outdid themselves in that aspect. It might be even better than Eternal. Overall graphics for me are an 8 out of 10 when compared to Eternal. It is kind of ironic to think that the art direction is so damn good, but most people won't be able to enjoy it because of the RT exclusivity. The game looks amazing, but it's too bad that we can get good performance without sacrificing a lot of graphical fidelity. The music is fine. I originally thought that Andrew Holschel did the music for this game, but I was sorely mistaken. When the music gets good, it's really good. But I think that these guys are a one-trick pony. The music here sounds a lot like music you'd hear on a trailer, but made by a Mick Gordon knockoff. Let's listen to a segment of one of the best songs in the game, Infernal Chasm. See? Like, it's good, but it's missing that trademark oomph from Mick Gordon. Finishing Move, which are the guys that did the music for this game, are very talented. But this music was made for the game first, and it simply was never thought out to be listened outside of the game. I can't imagine hearing this in my car to hype me up before work or the gym. But The Only Thing They Fear Is You is one of the greatest compositions in history. Every song in the main campaign in Eternal, except for Urdak and others mixed by Mossholder, the little rat, they're amazing compositions by Mick Gordon. Take them out of the game and they're still great songs to listen to by themselves. The songs in Dark Ages are okay for the game, but they're sorely missing that rule of cool, that a lot of previous games achieved so seamlessly. Then you have other songs that play later in the game that are incredibly cool and really do fit the setting they were going for. I'll just play a segment so you understand what I'm saying. Fuck yeah! But I do have to appreciate some of the good parts in every song here, so I'll play some examples here. I personally think that the latter parts of the game really do capture the look and feel they were going for, even with the music. The ambience in the underwater levels, so to speak, as to not get into spoiler territory, are awesome and they really pump you up for battle. I just wish the music didn't sound so Hollywood-like. Is it a detriment to the game? Not really. When it needs to get loud and cool, it does. But it's so diluted that I can't really say anything more than it's fine. It's really not that big of a deal at the end of the day, but it could have been so much better. If the Bethesda higher-ups weren't such big pussies and could handle contractors or freelancers like Mick Gordon with respect, maybe things would be different. On the aspects of sound, the game sounds really good. They went too far in some respects in Doom Eternal, and they seem to have gathered themselves in this game. The weapons sound really punchy, but it's your melee attacks that really sell you the gore and chaos here. There are about 1,000 samples for crunchy punches, blunt hints, and steel and bone sounds that, oh man, they brought back some sounds from Doom 64 and the original Doom for the enemies. I really like the demon sounds too, although I feel like you can really tell what is lurking just by the sounds, like you could in Eternal. This time they focus more on letting you know which kind of attack is coming and from where. Light spoiler alert. I'll now be getting into some light spoilers for the gameplay and the beginning of the story for the game. If you'd like to skip both sections, they'll be marked in the chapters, or you can skip to this time on screen. If you only want to skip the gameplay spoilers, or skip to here for the story, or just skip watching and skip the story part later. I'm sure most people are interested in how the game plays. Well, the way I can best describe it after playing it is that if Doom Eternal is Bloodborne, then Dark Ages is Sekiro. What do I mean by that? Eternal is a game that is highly based on mobility and aiming, as well as skill with the Slayer's ability and managing resources. Dark Ages trades the mobility of Eternal for raw power. The Slayer's incarnation in this game might be one of the most overpowered ones we've seen yet. And we're talking about the Slayer from Eternal, who literally shot a 400-meter tall demon to death. In this game, we're constantly fucking up titans as if they were nothing, and those demons are about the size of the icon of sin. Dark Ages decided to trade the double jump and dash for a shield that can do a long distance shield bash or get thrown like a frisbee, activating a chainsaw on the rim of the shield. The game is not slow, but you're supposed to be way more deliberate than in Eternal. That is to say, this game plays more like Doom 2016. I'd even go as far as to say that it plays most similarly to the original two Dooms. There are almost no vertical options or enemies in this game. Everything is extremely grounded, and if I'm being honest, it made me feel a little bit disappointed, but once I started doing punch combos on imp stalkers, my grin just wouldn't let me complain really. I guess that Hugo Martin has some dirt on some of the higher-ups at Microsoft and Bethesda, since they let him and his team do whatever the fuck they want with their games. This game expects a completely different set of abilities than Eternal did, but it's really not that overwhelming. I have finished the game twice by now, and very similarly to Eternal, the game didn't click for me the first time I played it, but it isn't until you get your full arsenal, shield, and melee options that the gameplay loop is completed and you finally understand what they were going for. Let me break it down for you. In Doom the Dark Ages, the Slayer weapons are tools for managing resources, very similarly to Eternal. You use the SSG to move around and get armor from enemies when it was fully upgraded by doing a simple mid-hook shot combo. In here, your basic shotgun becomes your main armor recovery device, and at least in my experience, it's one of the weapons you'll be using the most. As such, you have to contend with basically 5 resources: health, armor, ammo, shield health, and melee charges. You start the game with your shield and your shotgun. You will quickly notice that the shield is one of the main gimmicks that you'll be using throughout the entire game. The shield bash is a very good crowd control tool, but it also tends to put you in difficult situations if used improperly. You want to use the shield bash to stagger larger enemies and then use your combos. The shield can also be thrown and recalled with a single button press. This is also a great crowd control tool, and it can get you out of sticky situations by giving you lots of health when dealing with groups of fodder. Melee is also introduced in the first level, and it changes a lot depending on which of the 3 options you go for. The first one is the Power Gauntlet, which will do above average damage, and the third combo hit from it will do high damage. You get 3 charges of your melee. They refill automatically, but they change depending on the melee weapon. It is a great starter tool, but it loses its appeal once you get the second weapon, the Flail, which creates an area of effect that staggers other enemies near the one that you hit originally. But it also drops armor once you upgrade it. I won't talk about the final melee weapon because it's something to behold and enjoy once you get it. So basically, you're going around shield bashing the enemies in the arena, throwing your shield at plasma shield fodder, or superheating metal armor from enemies to explode it with your shield. And then you go in for the kill, doing a series of intricate combos on larger enemies. The game also incorporates a very slight aspect of bullet hell into the arenas. Some enemies shoot out projectiles in different patterns. Some of the attacks are Hell Surge energy attacks, which glow green. Every green attack can be parried with the shield, which creates an opening, and by around the 6th level of the game, you get your first shield rune ability, which are abilities that activate when you parry, but only projectiles. And these have different traits, and all of them damage and stun the demons in one way or another. It is kind of hard to explain succinctly, and you should give it a try any way you can, because describing it makes it sound kind of dull, but it's actually pretty fast and hectic, especially by the last stages of the game. Oh man. The weapons, as stated earlier, each have their own use in the research management game. Let's say that you need health. There are like 3 weapons that will give you options to recover health, but there are also melee weapons that recover health, as well as, the ranged ones that recover your armor. And there are power weapons, dedicated to dealing the most amount of damage, like the Super Shotty or the Reaver, which is a ball attached to a chain that deals massive damage when fully charged. The game obviously wants you to be as close to the battle as possible, and most weapons have a very limited range, which also gives your overall options, but gives you so many defensive and aggressive in-your-face options when up close to the enemy that you understand why they took that decision. There are also gimmick stages, if you want to call them that, in which you'll be flying around a huge map with your mecha dragon companion, Sarat. The flying is pretty well crafted, but those levels tend to get tedious after a while, especially when you're doing like Ultra Nightmare or Pandemonium runs. But they're really few and far between, as well as having some pretty good combat segments scattered through them. For the other gimmick stage type, we have the Atlan Battlegrounds, which are, just a few levels too, like 2 or 3, in which you get to control one of the huge mechs that were shown previously in Doom Eternal, and these levels are really amazing. But I'm a sucker for anything mecha. For me, getting to absolutely destroy gargantuan demons was one of the most fuck yeah moments in the entire game. Let's not go into spoilers, but man, do they go hard with these battles. You'll know exactly what I mean when you get to it. So in short, Doom the Dark Ages wants you to be even more aggressive than in the earlier 2 Doom games. You need to make quick decisions while up close to recover your armor or health, and not getting hit is pretty hard in this game. Dark Ages is trying to out-angry the whole Eternal gameplay loop. I can try to go into tutorializing each weapon, which I might do for later videos or for the analysis of the game, but for now, I guess this is about as deep as I want to go, without delving into, gameplay spoilers. Other than that, the enemy variety is pretty good, and you get introduced to new enemies until the latter stages of the game. And those last levels get pretty hectic, as stated earlier, throwing everything at the player with no holds barred. Most enemies have a precise way that you can kill them quickly. Most of the heavier demons, like the Cyber Demon, who looks awesome as shit now, though not very Cyber Demon-like, but whatever. They have some parry combos that open them up for a barrage of melee attacks that will melt them fast. And I really like how the Pinky Demons act during combat, having a soldier riding them at the beginning of the encounter. After doing enough damage, you melee the rider off with a glory attack, which are like mini glory kills that don't kill the enemy, and only some enemies have them. It also gives you some of your health back, and then you go apeshit with ranged attacks on the Pinky itself until it dies or you glory kill it. It's awesome, and all of the enemies have their own quirks, which aren't too hard to get used to. The game in general, I find that it's very fun and addicting. It's very different from what I thought I wanted by, just having a Doom Eternal expansion, but that would have been kind of tiring, This is a really good alternative to, a Doom Eternal expansion, just a little more accessible and less autistic than Eternal. So let's move on from the gameplay, because otherwise I would never stop. I'll maybe do a pure gameplay analysis and comparison to Eternal in the near future. The story is actually very cool in some ways. I'd even go as far to say that it's better than Eternals. The basic premise of this game is that it is a prequel to the Doom 2016 reboot. It finally shows us some of the events that link the original Doom universe, which is now Doom 1, Doom 2, Doom 64, and Doom 3 being another retelling of the events of Doom 1 through the lenses of another Marine, if my speculation is correct. If you don't want any kind of spoilers beyond that, skip this part or go to the timestamp. Otherwise, let's get the story out of the way. Dark Ages begins by showing us a few important details. We are witnessing an ongoing demonic invasion to the dimension of Argent Denor, before it falls and it becomes what we see in Doom 2016. I'd hazard a guess, based on my memory, that Argent Denur was eventually fully taken over and made part of the demonic plane, which was Yakad, which would explain why it was so demonic during the events of 2016 and so lush and gothic during this game. The Doomslayer is being held by the Makers, the eventual bad guys in Doom Eternal, who were responsible for the demonic invasion of multiple dimensions because of their deal with the demons of giving them, living sacrifices in exchange for purified energy reserves from the souls of said sacrifices. Seemingly, it is no different in this timeline of events, as the Makers are being assholes and letting humans from Argent Denur to die because of their refusal to send the Slayer. Once the Commander Thera, who is the daughter of King Novik, both important characters for this new Doom trilogy. Anyways, she informs the Maker General, watching the invasion unfold, that the energy reserves from this mine will be lost if they don't send in the Slayer. We see that the Slayer is being kind of mind controlled by some device on his armor, which apparently the Makers call the Tether, very similar to what Samuel Hayden did in 2016, and he imprisoned the Slayer by the end of the game using the same method. So they finally send in the Slayer, and we defend the city from the invasion. As the game progresses, we see that there is a main villain for this game, Azrak, a young prince from Hell who is quickly becoming the king of the demonic realm by sheer power and trickery. He is being aided by an unknown female entity which is only known as the Witch, and she has interest in Azrak's ascension, as he will apparently help her with something to do with her ancient god. The events of the story take us to really unexpected places, and let's just say that by the end, this game might be not only a homage to Quake, but I do believe that we are, into something here, as we are seeing a lot of things that complicate the scale of events even further than what Eternal dared to do. So that's maybe all I can say about the story for now, without getting into spoilers, like deep spoilers. But I really did enjoy the story. It can get a bit tacky and very dumb, but I love this kind of stuff. Like, this is basically like an anime or like a Marvel movie. It merges perfectly with the gameplay, and I wouldn't expect less from id Software. Are the cutscenes too long? Well, not really, maybe like 5 minutes each, and they all look very incredible. My main complaint is that there's letterboxing in the cutscenes, but I understand that it might be a technical workaround for the incredible, CGI movie-like quality that the cutscenes have themselves. I think the story isn't intrusive, and the gameplay is not affected at all by the long cutscenes, especially since they all can be skipped. I won't get into more details on the story because this is supposed to be like kind of spoiler free, but I plan on delving deeper on my full-blown analysis later this year. Hopefully, this year. So, yeah, I think I touched on everything I wanted to talk about, in this spoiler-free review for the Dark Ages. Don't worry, I will be back soon enough with another video. I want to next take on the others' hot takes of, the game, so you can hear me rant for 40 minutes on how people are dumb and want dumb games or Souls-like anyways. In a way, there's a feeling I kept getting all throughout my experience with this game. I can't for the life of me remember who, but I recently saw a video that appeared on my feed about Cousin Vive N64 PS1 era games, like Buck Bumblebee, Duke Nukem 64, Turok 3. In my experience, these are games that you didn't own yourself, but you had a cousin or family friend that had them. The Dark Ages feels like that type of N64 game in some aspects. I just can't describe it. Maybe it's the atmosphere of the game, the music quality decline, but still trying to keep the original trend alive. The gameplay being so exploring and secret hunting focused. The weird but interesting story, the voice acting, I don't know. It was something about it. It really made me feel like I was, 8 years old again, playing on my N64. But I don't know. I don't know if anyone else felt this way about this game, and that's not a bad thing exactly. It somehow feels like a game that a developer from the late 90s would have killed to have an opportunity to make. And you know what? I'm all for it. I feel that this game is refreshing, and it is my main contender at the moment for Game of the Year. Not because it's better than its predecessors, which I don't think it is, but id Software took it to whatever direction it wanted to. And that's completely okay. As long as they make an enjoyable experience and they keep pushing the envelope, I hope that the DLCs bring us more interesting locales and enemies. That was the main attraction for me during my whole experience. So I hope you guys have a great rest of your week. We're right at the middle of the year right now, and I'm having a great time, with my new job and my other hobbies. Finally, being able to spend time with my family and my friends and loved ones. It's been great. I just hope that you guys are having a great year as well. Thanks also for watching as always. I invite you, if you haven't already, to hit the subscribe button and the like button so that I can reach more people and continue growing on YouTube. If you want to support further, I'll have some links in the description for that. And well, yeah, that's basically everything. Go play Doom the Dark Ages. I recommend it, and I don't think you'll be disappointed. So, see you brotendos and brositas in the next video. I hope you're fine, fine, fine.